Joining me live from Hobart now is the Shadow Home Affairs Minister, Jonathon Duniam, who's been part of this working group landing this coalition policy. Jonathon, thanks for your time. Can you confirm that is what we will likely see today, as I've reported, given your discussion with the Nationals, can you confirm it's likely to be a rubber stamping of the position outlined by Susan Lee on Thursday?
Well, I won't, Andrew, thank you for having me, first of all. I won't pre-announce what the outcome of those discussions are, or more importantly, the outcome of the joint party room, which is the body that endorses the final position to be taken by both parties as policy. But you obviously have a flavour of where both the Nationals and the Liberals were, and you would not be surprised to learn that, of course, the ultimate makeup of that policy will reflect what you've already seen in the public domain, both from David Littleproud and Susan Lee.
So the position of the Nationals and the Liberals is that you don't back a net zero target for Australia, but you want to remain in the Paris Agreement. Is this not contradictory?
No, it's not, because, of course, as the Paris Agreement is structured, while nationally determined contributions need to be specified in each of those 5-year periods, of course, there are other provisions within the Paris Agreement that allow for consideration of things like economic impacts. That's something this government have not done under Article 4 of that agreement as well. And so I think there is provision for us to be able to make those determinations from government, as we've said we would, not from opposition. And of course, our first chance at being in government is still over 2 years away, so making a determination today about that is ill-advised. I think there is a lot of work we need to do as an opposition to be able to outline to the Australian people what that would mean in terms of emissions reductions. But the key difference between our approach to this and the government's is we're focused on energy affordability. They're focused on emissions reductions no matter the cost, and that has cost Australia dearly.
Well, this is what the Paris Agreement says. 4.3 on nationally determined contributions. Quote, each party's successive nationally determined contribution will represent a progression beyond the party's then currently nationally determined contribution and reflect its highest possible ambition. How can you then say we don't believe in Labor's 2030 and 2035 targets? We have less of an ambition, but we're going to stay in Paris.
So I wonder how the Labor Party answer that as well, by the way, given they're not making their 2030 and goodness knows how they'll go with their 2035 range, not target. This is the point around these targets we're setting for ourselves, which are a folly, frankly, given we as a country are blundering ahead, costing ourselves so much in terms of higher power prices and lost economic opportunities. Having these nationally determined contributions, which if we happen to win the next election will be determined in the national interest and benchmarked against comparable nations, that is a more sensible way to go. But the first priority should be one that is in the national interest, and that is making sure energy is more affordable.
Yep, okay.
Labor have that as a secondary consideration.
Let me take you back to the Paris Agreement, because, you know, there is a cake and eat it too aspect to your policy, it seems to me. 411 of the agreement says a party may at any time adjust its existing nationally determined contribution with a view to enhancing its level of ambition. So they're saying you can only change the NDC if you're making it bigger. Isn't that what it says?
And I think also 4.15 indicates that there should be consideration for the economic impact of a transition. And again, the economic impact on our country of Labor's blind pursuit of net zero by 2050 and their targets between now and then have cost us dearly. And so we need to factor all of the elements of the Paris Agreement in. You can't read one paragraph of Article 4 separate from others. All of them need to be read together. And our belief is we are not in breach. We don't need a blind target
so you can have
just emissions reductions at the expense of anything.
It is your view, it is your opinion, it is the opinion of your party that you could reduce those targets committed at those climate conferences and you'd still be within the spirit of the agreement. That's your view, is it?
Well, what we've got to do is we've got to, when we get to government, set targets for our nationally determined contributions that are in line with the national interest, and we'll submit those when we win government.
You believe those targets can be less than the current targets?
I think that when you read Article 4 of the Paris Agreement in totality, there is provision for us to do what is in the national interest, and we would determine those contributions to the emissions reductions effort in line with national interest. That means making energy more affordable. We have been doing ourselves a disservice.
Why not just pull out of Paris like Donald Trump?
Because there is a reason that we, as part of the developed world, should do what is best in best endeavours to ensure that we look after the planet. No one denies that. As David Littleproud and other colleagues have said, the science on climate change is settled. Don't worry about that. That's not the debate here. It's about how you deal with the efforts our country puts in when it comes to emissions reductions. At the moment, the Labor government is saying, well, we don't care what it costs, we're going to pursue these targets and we're going to destroy our economy on the way through. We're saying, no, that is not the right way to go. You might value reductions in reductions in emissions in an effort to reduce global temperatures, but why should you pay through the nose when others around the world are not? That is our contention. We've got to do it right for our country. We've got to make sure that the measures, the policies, the efforts we put in place actually are something we can afford to do, and households don't bear the burden of that.
So you and the opposition disagree with Donald Trump when he says climate change is a hoax, this is all a load of rubbish, this renewable energy thing?
Yeah, the Prime Minister of the United States has his very strong and strident views. Our country's been through a protracted debate on this, and again, my opponents would love it if we just sat here and debated whether or not the climate was changing, whether or not climate change was real, because every day we're doing that, we're forgetting about that key point of how we bring down power prices, how we make it a more attractive place to do business and invest as a country. And that lets them off the hook. So I'm not going to allow them to lure us into such a trap. We're going to be focused on doing what is right for the Australian people, and that includes saying to people who want to invest from overseas, come on down. We're going to make it more affordable to do business here and more certain at the same time.
Do you accept seats like Tim Wilson's, one of the few you hold in a metropolitan area, is potentially risked by this policy?
Well, there's a range of policy settings that will have an impact on our ability to win any seat across the country, and I understand the points that have been made around Tim Wilson's seat of Goldstein and other currently Teal-held seats. But last time I checked, people in Goldstein, people in Warringah, people in electorates like that, of course, all pay power bills. And we need to ensure that we cater to everyone and have policy offerings that make Australia a better place to live, to raise a family, to work. And I think we have a very strong case to argue here. And if we do our job properly, the people of Goldstein will hear what we have to say and back us in.
Jonathon, Duniam, I'm going to show the viewers this image of 16 or so MPs, including you, walking down to the party room on Wednesday. As I reported at the time, this was cooked up at a meeting of the Conservatives in Henry Pike's office, the member for Bowman. What was the intention of this when you all met and decided this was the way to do it, Taylor and Hastie walking together, etc.?
Well, I think your viewers would be very surprised, not very surprised, I should say, to learn that people who have similar views in any grouping, in our case in the Liberal Party room, often coalesce, often discuss, often meet, and that's just what that is. I think it's very inside the bubble who walks into what room with whom, and less important to the Australian people than the outcome of the meeting we were all walking into, which was that we want to actually have a policy when it comes to energy that makes energy more affordable rather than blind pursuit of climate targets, whatever the cost, which is Labor's policy. Was
it done to intimidate Susan Lee and the moderates?
No, I think, as I say, there are people who will have similar views around a particular issue. I'm sure we'll see groupings of people having coffee discussing issues before a party room meeting. We'll see people walking into party room together. We'll see people out to dinner together in Canberra, often reported about. There isn't much about this. So people who could run through the list of that group you've just played on to your viewers there, walking into the room, of course, will understand that everyone in that group believe that the approach taken ultimately by the Liberal Party is the right one, and we all had the same view. So there's not really much to say about it other than we're all good mates, we all believe in the same thing, and we look forward to winning the next election with a good policy suite.
The question of leadership hangs all over these images, though, doesn't it?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I'm great mates with Andrew Hastie, also great mates with Angus Taylor and all of the people in that group, along with people that others would classify as moderates. I mean, at the end of the day, what we need to do is straighten out our policy offering and have clear, coherent arguments about what we are offering and why it is better for the Australian people than what Labor are offering. And
who do you think's the best option as leader, by the way? Who do you think's the best option as leader of your two mates there?
Oh, well, Susan Lee's our leader, and I stood with Susan Lee at a press conference on Thursday, and outlined our plan to go through the process we're about to conclude today. I've stood with Susan Lee at a range of press conferences. I've been asked multiple times, do I support her? And my answer is, as it has been on all of those occasions, I support her because she's the one who's guided us through this process. She's the one who's landed this policy outcome. I look forward to working with her on other issues like migration, which is in the Home Affairs and Immigration policy area. So I'm supporting Susan Lee. She's our leader. She'll take us to the next election, and we are going to give it a red-hot go and hold this appalling government to account.
All right, I was about to ask you about immigration, funnily enough. I understand we might expect an immigration policy soon, and I understand you'll have had major input into that, which is odd, given Andrew Hastie resigned and you're in that job, because he didn't think, he was led to believe he would have any input as Home Affairs spokesman on the immigration issue. Yet it seems you're quite intricately involved. So what can we expect from that policy?
Well, I think, as I've already said publicly, Australians can expect common sense when it comes to the policy here. You've got a government that are very opaque about how many people they want to bring into this country, how they achieve that number, any conditions around that, what plans they have. We've said that that is where the problems arise. We need transparency. It should not be beyond governments, plural, state and federal, to determine how many houses we have coming online over the next couple of years, how many hospital beds we have available in various parts of the country, how our education system can cope with new Australians who want to educate their young. Those sorts of elements are key to figuring out how many new Australians we can welcome to our country and cater for. I mean, it's got to be a basic common sense debate around what we can sustainably provide for, because what kind of a country brings new Australians in, immigrants into our country, can't give them a house, can't give them an education, can't look after them when they're sick? That's where Labor's taking us, because they aren't planning properly. They've abandoned their multi-year planning. So you'll find common sense at the heart of this. I know Labor would love to say we're racist and we're divisive. Sorry, we're not. We're about compassion, and we're about making sure that what we do is not only right for the Australians that live here now and keep Australia the wonderful country it is, but is right for new Australians who want to enjoy what it is that's so good about this country.
Will we see a policy by the end of the year, Jonathon Duniam?
We'll work through our processes, and you'll be one of the first to know, I'm sure, Andrew, about when we'll be announcing it. We want to get this right, and I want to work very closely with my colleagues and experts in the field, including representatives of immigration stakeholder groups, to ensure that we do the right thing here. I'm not just going to rush to announcement of a policy and pluck numbers out of thin air and processes. We're going to get it right, and we'll do it at a time that is right for our party and for our country. You and Susan Lee have flagged cuts to migration. Will we see a policy which will look to cut both net migration and permanent migration? Are you looking at both of those? Well, we do have to look at all of those elements because, again, Labor's settings over the last 3 years have not worked, and they lack transparency in how they arrived at the numbers they have determined in terms of both permanent and net overseas migration. So we will look at everything, and all of the policy settings we announce will, of course, be determined off those common sense elements of decision making that I've already talked about. even the government have argued for a reduction in numbers. So no one's arguing we should keep it as it is or indeed increase. But we've got to get the number right. We've also got to target the people that we bring into this country so that they can serve the national interest, the skill sets we need, for example, going to the right parts of the country. All of those things have been left just to drift with a hands-off-the-wheel approach by this government. Our response in policy will be much more directed and, as I say, based in common sense.
Angus Taylor did a weekend interview with The Telegraph where he spoke about the need for policies on immigration and family, but I've heard Susan Lee is working those up anyhow. Is that true?
Well, look, I'm not going to speculate on what colleagues are doing. I think, of course, you would expect as an opposition gets underway and does the work it needs to in order to win back the votes we lost at the last election, we'll be considering a whole range of policy areas and approaches to, what we take to the next election. Susan's doing that. Ted O'Brien's doing that, Angus is doing that, a number of our backbench are doing that, and I am no exception. So we've got a lot of work to do, and everyone's got their shoulder to the wheel to get the best outcome possible. What's
your reaction to Donald Trump's announcement he's taking the tariffs off beef and other foods?
Well, this is obviously welcome news for Australian beef producers and exporters. I think there were a number of people at the time who sort of said this was going to be the outcome. American consumers would push back, and there are a range of areas where increased cost of living has bitten them just like it has here in Australia. So we, of course, welcome that. We don't welcome a government that tries to take credit for something like this happening. I know representations had been made, but this is based purely on American domestic politics and consumer pushback. It shows that tariffs aren't always good. It's a pity it's taken something happening in the US to get this outcome rather than the Australian government achieving the outcome.
Just finally, the Nazi rally at New South Wales Parliament House recently. What do you think of New South Wales Police allowing that to go ahead? And is there any federal action you'd like to see to stop these events happening?
Well, of course, it was very distressing to see such a rally going ahead, and I think the New South Wales government, along with New South Wales Police, have responded to this, and I know that the New South Wales Parliament will consider laws to tighten the ability of groups like this to conduct rallies of this nature. But federally, I think we do need to, I don't understand why this hasn't happened, but why National Cabinet haven't gone and said, righto everyone, around the country, we are going to tighten up state and territory laws to prevent this sort of activity from happening. You've got Gillian Segal's report, you've got the Special Envoy to Tackle Islamophobia's report, you've got all of this information at the Commonwealth Government's disposal. They've said they were waiting for these reports to act on how we can deal with issues like this and prevent this sort of behaviour in the community, yet our government has done nothing about it. So they need to show some leadership. Chris Minns has said he'll do that in New South Wales, but where's the Prime Minister? Where are the relevant ministers at a federal level, the Attorney General and others, to get state and territory governments to clamp down on this in a unified way? We should be able to do that post-haste, and I don't know why they haven't.
Jonathon, Duniam, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.